What's up, everyone? It's Harry here from Team Boss, and today's topic is it's probably more about sort of doing a bit of social service to people to help people keep safe, stay safe. Um, I work with a lot of athletes, all kinds of athletes. I advise them on various things. I don't discriminate. Because what often happens is a lot of people don't have access to A grade endocrinologist or A grade HRT specialists, and their only source of information often is to either they'll turn onto the internet and they'll listen to someone like Boston Lloyd or Rich Piana, or they'll read something on the internet, or a lot of times a lot worse, and especially in subcontinent, a country like India or anywhere in the world, their source of information is the local trainer in the gym, who might look great, but nobody knows how his body is from inside, because he's been not using, but 9 out of 10 times abusing PEDs, steroids and SARMs and whatever else, you name it, and they've done it. Just because somebody looks great doesn't necessarily mean that they're healthy as well from inside. In fact, it's often the total opposite, So a lot of times you see these guys and they look phenomenal. They're shredded, they've got these big six packs, and they've got these massive muscles. But the reality is, when you do their blood tests, and I see more blood tests than most doctors would in their practice, when you see their blood values and their they're just terrible. So just because somebody looks great from outside doesn't necessarily mean that they are healthy from inside. And not only that, and it doesn't mean that they actually know what they're doing. It's actually often it's further from the truth. So they will use whatever their mate was using, and often in India I've found is there's a lot of this unmarked and unlabeled stuff. So you're getting all these cut mixes and all this stuff in the bottle which don't have any labels on them. So often you don't even know what you're putting inside your body. So which I think is fraught with danger. It's highly stupid. It's full of risk. But that's not that's not the reason. That's not the topic of a discussion for today's video. The topic of discussion is. It's quite bizarre, in my line of work, when things happen, they sort of happen in sort of clusters. And in the last 3 or 4 months, you wouldn't believe the number of people who have sort of contacted me, and they want these 12-week transformations because believe it or not, they're about to actually get married, so they want to sort of look all this buff and so forth, and which is fantastic, you want to get married and you want to look great, that's fantastic, However, if there is one time not to be doing a cycle, not to be using steroids, is exactly that time, just before you're actually about to get married. Doing steroids from HRT perspective, that if you have chronically low testosterone, you're chronically low hormones, and using it from, say, therapeutic perspective, and you're trying to bring those test levels back up to normal level, I can understand. You already have very low sex drive, you already have performance issues in bed, and your test levels are already low. So I can understand, that would make sense. So because you're already in a troublesome situation. However, if you are normal and your test levels are within range, and even if they're on the lower end of the spectrum, and your libido is fine, your sex drive is fine, just because you've got a bit of a gut, or even if you're fat and everything else is okay, it's the worst time to actually be doing a steroid cycle. The reason why, I'll tell you, anywhere you go, the 9 out of 10 times, like, any trainer is going to put you on, okay, yeah, take 2 mils of test a week, which is 500 milligrams of test. Nobody's going to say to you, take half a mil. That's what most trainers and coaches will say. Oh, what does half a mil going to do? Nothing. And the reality is, probably it won't do much. It will do, but it won't do much. But when you start taking 500 milligrams of test, that is not where they stop. They will say, okay, jump on this, jump on that. So all of a sudden, using 2 or 3 compounds. So if you're 12 or 15 weeks away from your wedding and you're looking for the transformation, okay, you will have the transformation. However, people don't realize, let's say, when you start putting exogenous stuff into your body, your internal systems shut down, or at least they come down significantly. Let's say before you started your steroids, you were at, say, 4 out of 10, if 10 was the highest maximum of your testosterone range, your free testosterone, and you're sitting at 40%, and when you're using exogenous, you will go up to 15, 200, 300, 400%. So all of a sudden, you, instead of being at, no, you won't stop at 10, you'll go to like 12, 15, 20, 25, 30. So all of a sudden, you're 3, 4, 5 times above the normal range. And that's what's actually going to give you a dramatic transformation often, if you are not, a lot of times these guys don't know what they're doing with the diets and supplements, so actually you're relying heavily on steroids to get you the results. But often if you work with a smart coach, a lot of it is actually diet and supplementation. So now, once you finish that, you've done a 12-week cycle, you're about to go and get married or whatever you're doing, you come off it, you do your PCT. Now, see, the exogenous testosterone from outside is not coming in anymore. So your own testosterone has been shut down for 12 weeks, and then plus you add another 3 or 4 weeks of PCT or post cessation of your cycle. So your endogenous production is completely shut down or near shut down. So let's say before the cycle, you were at level 4. Then when you get off your cycle, you're not only going to come back to level 4, you will go down to level 2, 1, often 0. So soon as you're, depending on what ester you're using, soon as you get off your cycle, within a week to 2 weeks, your sex drive, your libido will rock bottom. So imagine you've just come from feeling like Superman. You look great. You've got all this buff body. That's great, fantastic. But then all of a sudden you go and get married, and then you start facing all these problems. So even if you didn't have a problem, even if you did have a legit problem, a lot of it is going to get compounded. It's going to get multiplied because the things that are going to go in your mind, or maybe it's due to that. Yes, a lot of it probably will be due to that, but then you start combining the performance anxiety and the mental issues. Then it's like, it's a worst case scenario. If there is one time that you should not be doing a cycle, is just before your wedding, in your quest to get lean. That is arguably the worst possible time you could ever pick. Or when you're trying for kids, that's going to shut down your sperm production as well. So people don't realize. So if you were trying to time it, okay, I'm getting married in, say, March, I'm going to start my cycle in November, I'm going to do, say, November, December, January, February, I'm going to do this 3 or 4 months, and I'll be buff and I'll be shredded and all. You will be, no question about it. You will look great from the outside. But as soon as you stop exogenous testosterone and exogenous steroids, your own production will take considerable, and it can take anything from 3 or 4 weeks, to come back up to normal, up to 3 or 4 or 6 months even, sometimes even longer. Everyone responds differently. So, this is a very vast topic. So the take-home points is, don't play with your health.